people don't know that they might have an immigration detention center in their own backyard, that people are suffering these abuses in their own backyard.
I'm just wondering why they keep me inside the prison. I'm just really wondering that. They keep me in the detention center. 3.5 months I was in there. And they can kick you, they can slap you anytime. And if you ask for a recording, give me a recording, just now you did. I have proof. They will say, no, the camera is not working. They will say, camera is not working. So, simple. What to do? We have nothing inside. We don't have any rights inside.
We have allowed our cities and counties to contract with private for-profit companies to keep our immigrants caged like animals.
It's really concerning when you hear about the profit motives that underlie these institutions. California has a tremendous amount of immigration detention centers. The vast majority of those are privatized, more so than the national average. So you really see that this is a huge problem here in California. And it's a problem that many people are totally unaware of.
Over 80% of immigrants detained in California are held by companies that profit off their incarceration.
So a lot of the contracts, for example, have mandatory minimums, meaning that they get paid regardless for a minimum number of beds, which essentially assures that they stay in business, ensures that they get immigrants transferred, and then creates a motive to keep immigrants in detention even longer. So there's a very strong incentive to increase incarceration at the cost of the immigrant community.
I was determined to find out how and why we as a nation began warehousing human beings for profit. I discovered that private prisons were not adopted because they made any fiscal or social sense. In fact, no research was done on the benefits or effects of privatization. Instead, they were adopted because racist and xenophobic public fears associated crime with immigrants and people of color. And even back then, from the very beginning, the government was aware that private contracting led to inadequate and abusive prison conditions. It was seen as a hasty and temporary solution, but over time it became permanent and lucrative.
Today marks an important day. The Dignity Not Detention Act, SB 1289, authored by Senator Ricardo Lara and co-sponsored by the Immigrant Legal Resource Center and Civic, marks a monumental step in the fight against mass incarceration and the right to humane treatment of all people regardless of immigration status.
Thank you for joining us today as we announce legislation that is quite frankly long overdue. I am proud to introduce Senate Bill 1289, the Dignity Not Detention Act.
There are national standards that are supposed to govern the care and treatment of immigrants in detention centers, but there's a huge problem because they're mere suggestions. They're not binding. They're not law. So if facilities go beyond or below these standards, there's very little that immigrants can do. This bill would change that.
So this bill does three very significant things. It ensures that local governments cannot engage in contracts with federal private detention centers. And additionally, it gives a private right of action for immigrants that have suffered injustices at these centers. And lastly, it ensures that the government regulations for the ethical treatment of immigrants that currently are recommendations are actually in statute and are going to be enforceable at the state level.
The Dignity Not Detention Act shows that California can and must lead the way in challenging and ultimately ending this abusive system.
And let us not forget about our LGBT immigrants who face the worst abuse in detention centers than any other population. This is particularly true to our transgender community.
I was a victim of an assault. I was a victim of constant harassment. Trans women are criminalized in our society simply for who we are.
I think it's time for us to legislate in this area. It's time for us to really make a change and to stand up for these vulnerable Californians. It is time for California to step up and lead the nation once again, to stop letting companies profit off the backs of immigrants and demand humane treatment for all.